Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today I'm going to be teaching you how to draft a corset with a basque waistline, a little bit curvy at the front. Kindly stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe. So this is the pattern paper I'll be using to draft out this corset blouse. You can use a pattern paper or you can use a cardboard, any paper you have around. Remember, whenever you're drafting a corset, you only need a paper to trace it out, to draft it out. So for this, I'm going to start inserting my measurement. First. The first measurement I'll be working with is my bust point. So my bust point, from my shoulder to my bust point, is 10 inches. So I'm going to mark 10 inches. Then I'll room a straight line. So I'm just trying to locate my bust point. Then I'll just mark it across. Then I'll rule a line. I'll just make sure it's equal. You know, when you are marking your lines, you need to mark from the start of your pattern paper to the end, the middle, just to be sure that everything is aligned. So I'm going to mark a straight line. After marking my bust point, the next point I'm going to mark is my under bust measurement. My under bust measurement is 13 inches. So I'm going to mark 13 inches. And this is it. So I'm going to cross check it and mark my 13 inches. Then I'll rule a straight line. So I'll just rule my straight line, and that will be for my under bust. So the next step I'll be marking is my waistline. So guys, my normal waistline is 15 inches, but for this tutorial I want it to come down. I don't want it to be above my navel, so I'm going to be adding 2 inches to my waistline. You can leave it at your normal waistline if you want your tummy to show, but I don't really want my tummy to show, so I'll be adding 2 inches to my waistline. So I'm going to mark 17 inches and I'll mark it across. After marking my bust points, under bust and waistline, I'm just going to go ahead to label, just to give me guide to know what I'm doing. So I'll go ahead and label it. Then the down part will be for my hip line. So you just label it with what you understand. So the down part of this pattern paper is my hip line. That's the length of my blouse. It's actually 26 inches for this pattern paper, so I'll be using 26 inch. You know that the bust line came down to our hip line side, very down. So the next part that I'm doing here, I'm marking my shoulder measurement divided by 2. Then I came down by 1 inch. That's for my shoulder slope. I don't really need this, but if you can do this in case you want to use the upper part for a yoke, like if you want to put a yoke to yours. But for this tutorial you don't need a yoke. So but this part will just give you a guide on what you are doing. So I'll go ahead and mark what I have at the shoulder at my bust point. So I'll go ahead and mark it. So that armpit side will serve as my chest line. So I'm just going to roll it straight to the other end. It will serve as my chest line. So after marking it, I'll go ahead, after rolling it as my chest line, I'll go ahead and divide my armpit into 2. Then so I'll label it my chest line. After rolling it, that's my chest line now will be 8 inches. So that's what I have there. So after rolling it, the next part is just to, I'm trying to label it to for it to show very well. My other marker was no writing way, so I'm just trying to label it to give me a guide of what I'm doing. So that's all for that part. So the next step is to draft out my armhole measurement. So my armhole is 8 inches, so I'm going to divide 8 inches by 2. It will give me 4. Then I'll come in by half an inch. After coming in by half an inch, I'll connect a curve just to give me that armhole look there. So I'll connect a curve. I'm using a freehand here just to do everything. That means you can work with freehand. You don't need your curve always. So I'm just going to put my neck measurement. I don't need it, but I'm just doing it just for a guide for this tutorial. But you can use this pattern in case you want to draft out a corset that need a yoke at the upper part. Yes, you can use this pattern. So the next step is putting my nipple to nipple measurement. So my nipple to nipple measurement is 4 inches. So from the bust point, I'm going to mark 4 inches straight down to the hip point. Then I'll draw a straight line. So after marking the 4 inches down, I'll come to my under bust. By the left and right, I'll mark 1 inches. I'll go to the center front. I'll mark 1 inch. So after marking 1 inch, I'll just connect from my bust point a little bit curve. Just if you can use your curve ruler, please do. So I'll just connect from my bust point to my under bust. So this is what I have. So I'll go up by my chest line because I don't want my bust to be really showing. So I want to go up again by 1 inch. That's 8 inches to be my chest line. So I'm going to go up by 1 inch. I'm going to go up by 1 inch. I'll just go up by 1 inch, then I'll mark a straight line. I'll mark a straight line. This is because I don't want my cleavage to be showing. That's why I'm going up by 1 inch. You can go up by 2 inch or 1 inch, it depends. So after going up by 1 inch, I'm going to mark the same measurement I took at the down part, 1 inch and 1 inch at the other side. Then I'll just connect to my bust point. That's the upper dart. So I'll connect everything to the bust point. That is it for this part. So after doing this, I'm just going to mark those 1 inch straight down to the hip. So I'm just going to mark it to the hip, and this is what I have. So after marking it, the next part is to come to my center front to give it that small part we used to have at the front of our corset. So it's usually half inches. So when you open it, it will be 1 inch. So I went in by half inch. So I'll just make a sweetheart curve. Just make a sweetheart curve. Just be creative here. Just make a sweetheart curve to your armhole line. So this is what I have. I'll just roll it a line. So from there, I'm going to connect a curve that will meet my under bust. So watch closely. This is what I'm going to do. So this is for this part. I'm done creating this other part cup. So for this other part, what I usually do to get it so it will accommodate my bust, I'm going to check the difference between my bust point and my under bust. Is usually 3 inches. So after marking my 3 inches, I'll go ahead and add 1.5 to it so it will accommodate my bust. I think 1.5 is okay because that's what I've been using for my client and it has been working for them. You just go ahead and measure the difference between your under bust, your bust point and your under bust. Then you add 1.5. That's what will give you the other side of your cup. So you just connect. So after doing that, I'm going to put in my round body measurement. I'll divide it by 4. Then I'll add the dart allowance I'm taking away from the cup. Then I'll add 1.5 for my stitching allowance. So that's what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to connect it straight to the hip. So I'll just connect it straight to the hip. Then I'll label the yoke part in case if I want to use the yoke. So this is the yoke. part. So the next part is for me to cut out this pattern, the side first. So I'm going to cut it out like this. So this is how it looks like. I'm just going to cut both the yoke, I'm just cutting the yoke out. I'm not using the yoke, so I'm going to cut the yoke out. So the remaining part is what I'm using for this tutorial. So this is what it looks like. I'm just going to cut it out. But first, I'm trying to label it. I'll just label the smaller part one, then the second side two, then I'll label my down, my up, my side. This is to give me a guide when I want to join my cup, or when I want to create a cup for this breast pad, this corset pad. So this is it. So I'll go ahead and just take this piece, the excess away. This part I'm not using it again. So I'll go ahead and join these two patterns together with my slow tape, because I don't want to have it joining at the front. I just want everything to be fine. There won't be it's not be like the other corsets where you add like half-inch allowance to it. It has to be separate. This one I want to cut it together with my pattern. That's why I did it like that. So I'm going to take it like that. I'll bring out my back, a pattern for the back parts of my dress. So I'm just going to place it on the pattern, then I'll pin it so it won't shift. So after pinning it, so the waist part, I'm still going to come down by 1.5 again. I really want this part to be down. I don't want it to look like a crop top at the side. So I came down by 1.5 again. It just depends on what you want. So I'm just going to trace it. So the back and the front side will be having the same shape. So I'm just going to trace it like this. And this is what it looks like. So after tracing it, I'll just go ahead and remove my pin. So after rolling it, we're not putting zip in the back of our dress, so I'm going to minus 1.5 at the down part of this back. Then at the upper part, I'll minus 2 inch. So I'll just mark a straight line. This is where we are going to fix our eyelet. So I'm just going to cut it out. This part, I don't need it. So before I cut it out, I'm just going to mark it, so I'll know that this is my down, this is my up. And that's all for the back pattern of this dress. After drafting the back pattern, so we'll go back to the front pattern again. So now to create that back skew effect at the front, that curvy part at this down part of my blouse, I'm going to go in by 1.5. 1.5 or 2 inches is fine. So I'm going to go in by 1.5. So after going in by 1.5, this is what I will have. I'll just mark a straight line up. So this is what I'll have. So I'll try to connect a curve to meet that line that I came in by 1.5. So this is it. I'm just going to use the back to check if it's at line, so the back and the front side will not be different. So I'm just going to mark it. Then from that part where I mark, I'm just going to make a curve. It's not going to be straight. You can use your free hand. It's not going to be straight. You just make a curve, not really curve like that, but kind of a curve. Yes, so this is what you do. So after making your curve, you just make sure it's okay. If you think it's okay for you, then you can just go ahead and cut it out. For me, this is what I want, and this kind of curve at the side is okay for me. So I'll just go ahead and cut the other part out. So that's all for drafting and cutting of this pattern. So in my next video, I'll be teaching you how to cut and join this corset So I'll go ahead and cut this pattern on my main fabric and on the landing. Then I will add extend to it just to give it strong effect, because we are putting bone in this dress, this blouse. I'll go ahead and add half inches allowance on all my pattern when cutting it on my main fabric. So stay tuned for the next class.